We're in the process of gathering bulls up, and I needed a little more horse than my colt, so.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes, I mean, that's why we keep them.
Yep.
Oh, that's why we keep them. So, like, what would you title this thing? You know, just kind of thinking the format, you know? What are we going to call it? Okay.
Because I keep coming, I mean, from what I do, Jason, one of the common denominators that I keep coming back to is what type of communication do we focus on? Communication has always been in the title somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's effective communication or whatever type of communication you want to call it.
Yeah, but so just to kind of spitball, you know, the trouble is too many things you have to define, right? If you use a term like effective communication, well, what's effective?
Yeah, what's effective?
You got to establish all that. Well, we don't want to leave it too many questions in the title, I don't think. And so I'm thinking about like communicate for change, communicate to win, or communicate to understand. Whoa, that's good.
That's there.
Communicate to understand.
There.
That's good right there.
Yes, it is. Because that's what it's all about. That's where we miss it. Because what I understand, I assume you understood what I meant.
Right. Yeah.
And if we're not on the same page because we didn't start on the same page,
Yeah.
we've got to break down a communication.
Well, and that's the thing too, right? Like, I know that that's a bad habit that I've had to change. Is communicating to be understood, and I start there because I think I need to be understood before we can have an understanding. And that I don't have a. I haven't cracked the code yet. I've just asked the question. I mean, have you seen, like, is that a common thing?
Oh, yes, because one of the sayings that I go back to is to seek first to understand before you are understood. And a lot of people don't get that. They want to be understood while they've got the floor before they understand what's going on around them.
Yeah, while they got the floor, that's the key, right?
Yes.
Because I know that's the trap I fall into. It's like you don't feel like you're going to get another opportunity to be understood.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I just focus in on the opportunity that I have.
Then I've had people tell me when they interrupt something that we're going, they interrupt the feel, rhythm, and timing of a conversation. But I need to get this off my chest before I forget.
Yeah, go.
You know, that's what they do.
Yeah.
So just how important is it?
Yeah. But what's your immediate thoughts when you hear that?
Well, I come back to the different types of personalities and what I'm dealing with, because some people, their mind is turning so fast in their head they can't keep up with it.
Yeah.
you know, words are spinning around in their head so fast they can't spit out anything to say that makes sense.
Right.
And yet other people, their wheels are grinding so slow, we move on past this point before they ever generate a thought.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy, it's a secure, safe zone not to say anything.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not a part of the conversation, which in turn leads to a lack of understanding.
Like, what can we do as a communicator to kind of figure out where people are at, whether they're, you know what I mean, whether they're like me, 90 miles a minute, or if they're like you and they like to consider things before they open their mouth.
And before I stick my foot in my mouth, I'd like to prepare what I'm going to say. And some people that need that extra time, it's all in the body language.
Ooh, I want to get to that. I'll come back. Boy, you're hard at it in here, man. Those screws are going to make really cool. I think there's got to be a way to incorporate those into the handles. You know what I mean?
These ones, actually.
Yeah, the cool ones, exactly. But we got to come up with another punch, don't we? To get that size of hole. Alright, let's look at that in a minute. Let's go out here and listen. Okay, so visual cue. Was that where we were at?
That's where we were at.
Body language.
And that's a part of understanding the communication to see if a guy's been disconnected from the exchange of information. Or is he thinking? Or does he just need encouragement to go ahead and say what's on his mind?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's, you know, that's a whole encyclopedia of what's going on inside somebody's head. And if we get impatient, we either move on or we make them feel like they don't want to be a part of it. And it goes back to just like you asked me a while ago. Are you thinking or did you hear me?
Yeah. Well, but we've kind of had a pretty good time investment, you know, in one another in order to be, for that kind of communication to be safe.
Yes. Yes.
I've tried that trick with people that we didn't have that track record with, and they didn't take it well.
Okay.
You know, and so
And when they didn't take it well, what do you mean by that? What happened?
It just seemed like they felt condescended to. Like, you know, are you thinking, or did you just not hear me? Or, you know, and they just got defensive for whatever reason. And because I mean, like with me, I spend a lot of time with my back to you. Well, if I stand up here to look at you to communicate, you know, that breaks down the process. You know, breaks down the flow of progress.
Yes.
And so I've kind of learned, or I'm working on learning a little bit on how to kind of mix both, keep things moving. You know, gives my body a break.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. But I have had that. I have, you know, sometimes when you just try to be blunt, people just get defensive super easy.
It's, I get it. I understand that in as much as, to me, that's perceived as pressure, which is another concept we use in the horse business. Pressure and release. and that's perceived as pressure. And if the communicator doesn't understand that to be pressure, we don't understand when to release it. And what I mean by that is when you say something, instead of being too blunt, which I say what has to be said, which is perceived as being a little hard sometimes. But when I get somebody that needs a chance to express their point of view and I don't get an answer, I usually soften up my voice and ask it again. Just soften your voice.
Yeah.
And ask the same question again.
Now, is that something that came natural for you, or is that kind of a negotiator tactic you were trained into?
Both, because that was something I stumbled into a lot of years ago and found out in the negotiation business that works well.
Yeah.
Because I'm not applying more pressure. Did you hear me? You release the pressure with the softness of the voice, and you ask it again so there's no misunderstanding of what I am asking. With the bottom line, if you don't want to answer my question, just say so. Just say so, but I'll accept that.
Yeah. Anyway, where were we, Bob?
We're talking about progress, and I think what came to my mind was another issue in the horse business is you go slow to go fast. Because I'm going to ask you, when you first started horseshoeing, how good were you?
Oh, terrible. And slow.
And it took time.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, because all of us are different, and all of us operate on a different motor skill as to what we can intake and outgo. But sometimes we have to slow things down so next week we see a lot more progress. Because just like you had to go slow to go fast. And coming fast comes sometime later down the road. And communication is the same way. Because when you think about this, how many lessons in communication have we had since you were told to talk when you were 2 and 3 years old? You were told to talk.
Yeah.
And then the next lesson that come along when you were a teenager was you were told to shut up.
My mom, sorry to interrupt, but my mom always said, spend the first 2 years teaching them to walk and talk, and the rest of their life telling them to sit down and shut up.
That's the point.
Yeah.
And that's a little more accurate than we really want to admit.
Access and connection. Those two things are more important than people think, or than I really thought, right? Like,
In the other person, because you go away with an image in your mind that's not accurate. But look at everyday life. That happens everywhere we go. And it all boils down. And see, that just all falls under that big umbrella of communication and understanding. That umbrella is just so huge that most people think, I say it, you hear me, you should do what I want. But look at the things we've talked about in the last 20 minutes that is a little deeper than just exchanging words.
Yeah. Well, I know that my communication with dogs and horses sure changed when they they changed in my mind of being simple beasts of burden for doing what I want them to do, or being these independent personalities with quirks, experiences, thoughts and emotions all their own.
Social media has its place,
Yeah.
but do people post and say things on social media when they don't have the backbone to say it to your face? Is that based on fear? What gives a person the courage to do that when they wouldn't do it face to face?
Man, that's a good question that I don't know how to answer because I really haven't. I know what I've seen in myself, right? Social media, it kind of dehumanizes the other person.
Yes.
It removes their feelings,
Emotion.
Their validation. It removes all of that, so you don't even have to face your own consequences of seeing hurt in someone's eyes.
But you can also put in your own emotion, because if you're kind of in a bad mood when you read it, you're assuming the guy was in a bad mood when he wrote it.
Yeah. I'm good at projecting my own mental state onto whoever I'm talking to.
And it would be better, to me, in my opinion, when I don't usually talk all that much. It would have been better just to shut up to start with. But a lot of people don't have that in their vocabulary. They don't understand that is an avenue. Just shut up for a little bit. It's okay to be quiet. It's okay to listen. But we see a lot of posts made by people that would have never said anything. They either won't sign it, won't put their name to it. What gives them it's America, so they've got the right to do it.
Yeah.
But look at the consequences when it comes, when you don't have the courage to put your name to it. And it may go back to the fear. Well, I don't want somebody to really not like me. I just need to say this.
Yeah.
But there's a lack of understanding as to why they say it to start with.
Well, reposting memes is an easy way to not take responsibility for the whole message. That's the thing that throws me off. I won't even have, if I can avoid it, I won't even have a potentially negative conversation over the phone. If I'm doing something that counts, I at least want to have a video call. Uh-oh. Am I screwing up? I don't think so. I'm inclined to look for something different in the courage of anonymity. Because I don't know that that fear even drives the decision. I don't think it's even in the equation really for why people grab a meme and share it without thinking it through, or really that they only look at it through their own perceptions, or will just shoot something off, in a chat room or whatever, There may have been a little bit of that involved back when it was more anonymous and everybody used a handle and things like that. But people don't really do that anymore. Now there's some rooms where people can do that, but most of the public social media stuff, they've kind of boiled it down to where you have to kind of own your stuff. And I can't figure, I don't know what that is, but for me, it was just a lack of an immediate consequence. It's just plain old inconsiderate to fire off some of that crap and not have an immediate consequence. Now, it's easy to grab and be like, well, I can't reach you, so I can't choke you. Or you can't reach me, so you
Right.
can't choke me.
Right.
But any of that, right? Like you can see it in somebody's eyes, whether you make a conscious effort to understand that nonverbal feedback or not, you're gonna receive something. And you can either receive that through the limited lens of your own perceptions, or you can receive that nonverbal feedback through a more diverse lens of empathy. And so, like, the video calls allow us for at least a measure of that. But I'm pretty nervous about this upcoming webinar because I am so dependent on nonverbal communication, especially now. And the performer in me just wants to crank everything up to 11. And boy, that sure limits your audience. To where if you have a pretty good cross section of like an audience of 3, you know, you can.
I couldn't find any front aunts. Do you want keggers?
Yeah, kegger.
Okay.
3/8 but 7/8 specifically.
Yeah.
You've got at least that 3 different lenses that you can gauge your feedback to. You know, do you bring a little more heat? Do you turn the heat down in your communication? Because I think we talked about that.
I think it'll be close, but I can do it.
Oh yeah, I'll whip that sucker into shape. Throw him in there and get him hot. Trying to think it. Well, I'm not sure if I heard it from you in our talks or if I heard it in the Chris Voss talk, but I wouldn't be surprised if I didn't hear it. You know, that turning up the heat. And what that translated to me, it was control your heat, right? Run your fire. So from the blacksmithing perspective, we all have a different style. I've got it. He just does everything wide open, and he can be accurate and precise. I mean, he can really do that. And I tend to run my fire a little more, and especially when I'm working in gas, I'll turn the burner up, turn the burner off. So you know, I try to make a real conscious effort to control my heat. And like, as soon as that concept came about knowing when to turn up the heat, how to turn up the heat in a negotiation, it just kind of started this paradigm shift that made me reconsider how to control the heat in any communication.
Which is under the umbrella, to me, from the negotiation world, that's under the umbrella of risk versus reward.
Can you tell me about that?
Risk versus rewards, because there's consequences every time you open your mouth. Every time. And most of the time it's good.
Yeah.
But if you've got more heat than you thought you did, ooh, dang, I shouldn't have said it that way.
Yeah. When somebody's got his, so to put that into context, somebody's got his family barricaded in a trailer house and he's got guns. There's a lot on the line.
There's a lot on the line. Yes. Risk versus rewards. And cultures, different cultures play into that. That's why it's important to understand another culture when you have somebody that's barricaded or has a victim. Because there are very few hostages anymore, they're more or less victims. But when somebody doesn't respond, total lack of response, they're tuned out, you don't know what they're doing. Where are they? Did they hear me? Did you not hear me, or do I need to say it again?
No.
You change the heat. You change the heat.
Yeah, because like I've never been around like a real hostage situation, but I've dang sure dealt with people that will hold the situation hostage. You know.
Yep.
And I mean, and that's a usable tactic, right? It's not whether or not holding a situation in a negotiation or any kind of business exchange, holding a situation hostage is quite as negative always. Now, if you're just using a visibility tactic, that's